brings you fair, current, and objective discussions and analysis of current events in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe will host the Conference of Parties, COP15, from the 23rd to the 31st of July 2025 in Victoria Falls, where the country is poised to make a significant commitment to protecting wetlands. Wetlands are some of the most valuable ecosystems on the planet, providing vital services like water filtration, flood control, and habitat for diverse wildlife. In Zimbabwe, wetlands support agriculture, fisheries, and tourism, making them a crucial part of the country's economy. However, these ecosystems face numerous threats, including habitat destruction, pollution, and climate change. The importance of our wetlands cannot be overstated. They help regulate the water cycle, support biodiversity, and provide livelihoods for thousands of people. In some parts of Zimbabwe, wetlands are also cultural and spiritual sites, holding significant value for local communities. Despite their importance, wetlands are often overlooked and undervalued, leading to degradation and loss. COP15 is a major opportunity for Zimbabwe to showcase its commitment to wetland conservation. The conference will bring together global leaders, experts, and stakeholders to discuss the future of biodiversity conservation. Zimbabwe's participation in COP15 will demonstrate its dedication to protecting its natural heritage and promoting sustainable development. So to start our conversation, we'll focus on wetland conservation efforts being done in Zimbabwe first, and then we move to discuss the COP15, which is coming up in July. And to help me delve more into this discussion, I'm joined in the studio by Fanuel Mangisi. He's the Environmental Impact Assessment and Ecosystems Protection Manager. Welcome to Star FM, Fanuel.
Thank you, George, and a good evening to our listeners.
And joining us once again, Amkela Sidange. She's the Environmental Education and Publicity Manager. Both are from the Environmental Management Agency. Amkela, welcome.
Thank you so much, George. It's a good evening to listeners.
Any updates from Emma before we get into our program? What have you been up to?
We have been up to everything environmental, especially now that we have just gone past the rainy season, meaning that we are having the dry season approaching. So we are actually, drumming up the awareness around the issue of starting now to prepare for the dry season so that we actually prevent the occurrence of wildfires. Because we are saying wildfires actually they are detrimental to the environment, to our properties as well as life. And if we look at it at a closer look, every one of us has got a responsibility in preventing wildfires.
Thank you so much for that update, and we hope that the listeners have taken note. The field fire season is coming up. Senguva dzose makasununguka kutinyorerawo maorerano nenyaya dzezvekuchengetedzwa kwemabani. Takatarisana zvikuru nemusangano mukuru uri kuuya weCOP15. To you, our valued listeners, please feel free to join the discussion on our WhatsApp platform 0772 162 651. Amkela, I'm coming to you once again. If you can just by giving us a state of our wetlands in Zimbabwe and how important are they to the environment. I know we talked about this, but we can never stop overemphasizing the importance of wetlands.
Thank you so much. I think we are here really to discuss, like you did say, one of the critical ecological systems, something that we value so much as a country. And I like the way you have referred to them in the mother language, Mabani. In Shona, if you go down to the Ndebeles, they call Amachabozi, the Kalangas, they refer to is as Nuta, and if you go down to south, the Sutu people, they refer to them as Misenya. So we are talking about a very valuable ecological system that we cannot really ignore. And now if we look at the status of wetlands in the country, they just make up about 3% of Zimbabwe land cover. Somebody might say, then why are we here busy discussing about 3%? We are discussing about 3% because it forms the most important ecological part of our ecosystem. And looking at these wetlands, basically their status, according to the National Wetland Master Plan, about 19% they are in the stable status, 26% they are severely degraded, and then 55% they are moderately degraded. But what I can quickly probably highlight to the nation is that if we look at these different statuses, there is actually a lot of hope in our wetlands. Why are we saying so? Because if we look at those that probably we are saying they are moderately or severely degraded, there is still a chance to actually regenerate them. Wetlands can actually be regenerated. And some people might argue how. It is very simple. It's just simple, trying to allow for those same spaces to actually yield naturally. They will actually come back to be the wetlands that they were before. So if we look at how as a country we have moved, especially on trying to protect these wetlands. There are a lot of initiatives that we are going to be discussing as we go deeper into the program. But for now, what I can basically say is that our wetlands, they remain valuable. Whatever is remaining, whatever is gone, we still have it. We can still resuscitate those that we think they are gone.
Thank you so much, Amkela, for that update on the state of wetlands in Zimbabwe. And we also have in the studio Fano Mangisi, is the Environmental Impact Assessment and Ecosystems Protection Manager. First time on the program on Star FM?
Yes.
Welcome. Feel welcome to give us all the details as we go through the program. But what are the major threats to wetlands in Zimbabwe, Fanwell? And how is Emma working towards curbing these threats?
Okay. Thank you very much, George. I think in your introduction, you talked about the importance of wetlands, provision of water, flood control, water purification, food provision, being habitats for plant and a variety of animal and bird species. So this shows that wetlands are very important. I think taking from my sister Mkela, she then talked about the state of our wetlands, the current state in the country, where she then said wetlands, they cover 34% of the land cover, and this is almost like 13 million hectares. So what it means is they cover a significant portion, and also they are very important. But even though they are important to our day-to-day lives, they are being threatened by a variety of activities. As humans, we depend on wetlands for water provisions, for food and other activities. But we are still the people who are still causing damage or degradation of these wetlands. So some of the threats that I can talk about, you can talk about urban expansion. As urban expansion is being done, there is also invasion on wetlands, your housing development projects, your industrial expansion activities. I think you've also talked about pollution. Pollution is also coming in from urban expansion, from industrial activities. Even in the countryside, we also have mining activities. Mining activities also, they threaten our water systems, our wetlands. Even in urban areas, we also have activities like sand poaching or sand mining. They also affect our wetlands. With the increase in population in the urban centers, there is also bound to be generation of waste. So dumping of waste is also one of the threats that is being exerted on our wetlands. And then agriculture, be it in the urban areas or even rural areas, there is also disturbance of wetlands or damage to the wetlands because of agriculture activities, your irrigation, your drainages. So these are some of the threats. I think Amkila also talked about veld fires. Veld fires, as they occur, there is also damage to the wetlands, because even the grass species are destroyed, the animal species are destroyed, even the bird species are destroyed, the living organisms that supports the wetland ecosystems are also destroyed. So these are some of the threats that we are faced with, George, in terms of wetlands management. But as EMA, as the regulatory body responsible for environmental protection, we also have efforts that we are doing in order to curb the destruction of these wetlands. one of the critical issues is the issue of the legal framework that we have in place. Um, for projects that are coming in, especially in the urban areas, we have Section 97 of the Environmental Management Act that talks about projects that require an environmental impact assessment to be undertaken and a decision to be made before the project commences. This is a proactive approach where you can then try to find to anticipate the impacts of the development project on the environment, including the wetlands, and offer mitigation measures so as to ensure that the project complies. So this is one of the areas where we are saying for all the prescribed projects, that's just like housing projects, they have to undergo through an EIA process. And in terms of law, we also have some legal statutes that govern the management and use of wetlands. I think we have also Section 113 of the Environmental Management Act that deals with protection of wetlands. We also have SI 7 of 2007 that also deals with protection of wetlands. So as EMA, we are also there to ensure that offenders are prosecuted, those who are draining or utilizing wetlands without permission. And then one of the key components of our section responsible for environmental planning and monitoring is also to carry out what is called ecological assessments. Ecological assessments are done to determine the state of wetness of the area so that it can then inform decision makers, especially local authorities or the planning authorities, whether the area is a wetland or not. When you then know the state of the wetland, we then even offer recommendations in terms of activities that can be done on that particular state of the wetland. I think in addition to that, I think through the Ministry of Environment, we are in the process of gazetting wetlands as areas or as ecologically sensitive areas, where when they are gazetted, and then we then impose limitations so that at least we can then control infrastructure development on the wetlands. And then as the agency also, we have also mapped wetlands, and then we have also shared this information with local planning authorities so that we have a database of wetlands that are there, those that Amkela has talked about, those that are in the pristine state, modality degraded, as well as severely degraded. This is also important for planning purposes. So we also have the National Wetlands Policy of 2021 that we also follow, as well as the guidelines. So the National Wetlands Utilization Guidelines, they also spell out certain activities that are allowed in a certain type of wetland so that we can even maintain the status quo of the wetlands that we have. But the bottom line is our wetlands are under threats, and more efforts is needed to ensure that we protect the remaining wetlands.
In terms of citizens abiding under these laws that you've talked about, these policies, how are the people following the law? Vari kuteedzera here mutemo kana kuti yanguva njake njake?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think looking at where we are coming from or where we started as EMA, I think the message is now there. And even with the local authorities, I think we are now reaching a point where we have a common understanding. And even some of the developers, the fact that they also come to our offices and ask for the proper direction before they do that. And, there is always some sensitive issues that are also related to being on the wrong side of the law. Imagine when there are people who are constructing on different areas, and then eventually the law would then come on them, and then there is also sometimes a destruction of households. This is not what we want. But I think the message now is there, even among the planners, even among the people, and we are actually receiving quite positive results from the engagement that we are doing, even with the citizens, with the new developers, with the local authorities. And I think we still need to do more, but the level of cooperation is better than before.
The positives are there, and I'm glad that certain contractors are also coming to you. But one giant step forward, you'll also find that like Bulawayo now, we're just hearing reports that gold panels are now even digging in Bulawayo, and with Bulawayo's water shortages, this could also affect the water system if they hit the wetlands. We continue to notice mining companies releasing residues into the ecosystem and people settling on wetlands. As Emma, what are you doing to deal with this situation once and for all?
Okay, thank you very much, George. I think the issue of prosecution is an ongoing process where we also learn from even our past experiences. So as Emma will still continue to be vigilant, to monitor these activities, and then where perpetrators are identified, we can also bring them to book. I think we also have cases where penalties have been imposed, and even environmental protection orders have also been imposed, and then even some of the perpetrators have been also taken to court. So I think the legal framework that we have currently, it's a matter of strengthening the loose pieces where we can then say even the EIA process that we are talking about, we are still implementing it, we are also monitoring it, but still we can do more. Even provisions of FSI 7 where we need to put conditions in terms of utilization of wetlands. So it's an ongoing process that we still feel that as the agents we can still continue to engage the local authorities, we can still continue to be vigilant in terms of monitoring, and then we can also still continue to be doing a prosecution. I think one of the issues that has happened of late is we have been seconded with police officers, and we have established what is called the National Environmental Law Enforcement Unit, where we have 15 police officers that have been stationed at EMA, and this has been done to aid prosecution. So we'll continue to be vigilant, we'll continue also to up our game in terms of prosecution.
Oh, I'm glad that you are working with the police, because makorkoza anotyisa and vangangoti munovatya saka mangosiya vachiparadza mumabani mbese. But it's good that there's a teamwork there, all stakeholders are involved. I'll come to Amkela now. Are there any successful wetlands restoration projects in Zimbabwe that can serve as models for future initiatives? I think even when COP15 comes, we also want to say we managed to fix this, we managed to restore this. And is it possible to restore ma wetlands anenge akuvadzwa?
Thank you so much, George, for that question. Maybe before I go into that, allow me to just pick on one or two issues on what Mr. Mangisi was probably attending to. There's something that I want our people to understand. My brother here talked about land conversion being a threat to wetland management in the country. I want us to also look at this not in isolation as Zimbabwe, but to understand that the issue of conversion of land, especially due to urbanization or expansion of urban areas, is actually a headache globally. That's why you realize that if you look at the Convention on Wetland or the Ramsar Convention on Wetland, they've since come up with a strategy of actually identifying those cities that have actually, or that kind of implementing best practices in wetland management, wetlands that are within their areas of jurisdiction, and they're going on to actually accreditate these cities as wetland cities. I think we have heard that recently one of our cities, that is Victoria Falls, was actually accredited as a wetland city. What we need to understand is that that is actually a kind of a strategy to try and ensure that in as much as we have urban expansion, we also need to at the same time protect wetlands that are occurring within those urban spaces. Hence this encouragement through the accreditation of cities as wetland cities. And then also now, just to pick on what Emma is doing, we see the continuous violation of law. I think Mr. Mangisi has actually picked on some of the issues, but what I can probably say is that as the agency, we are receiving a lot of feedback, which we are using as an indication that our people, they are well aware of the the rules and regulations of the land. They're actually aware of what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And the way people really come around when they see any violation, any environmental law violation, it goes to show that people really understand all these things. But what is only lacking is compliance to the standing regulations, which is what we are really encouraging, that let's remove this huge appetite for just going against the standing laws and violating them is actually disservice to ourselves. So that's something that I wanted probably to add there. And now coming back to your question, whereby you are saying, are there any successful, wetland projects in the country? Yes, I can actually confirm and testify that we have such projects. Maybe just going to statistics, as the Environmental Management Agency, we have been able to do physical counts of about 120 wetland management projects, or can I say projects that are trying to ensure that we put more wetland area under sustainable management. We've got about 120. These are implemented at the community level. These are actually community wetland management projects. And we have realized that if we do some mathematics from all those projects, as a country, we have been able to put about 1,080 hectares of wetland area, 108,000 hectares of wetland area under sustainable management. So it goes to show that yes, we have wetland projects that we can take and say these are models in the country. And the beauty about these projects is that they're actually tapping into one principle of the Ramsar Convention on Wetland, that is the principle of wise use, because you find that most of the projects that we are working with together with our stakeholders, they actually try to amplify the concept of wise use, whereby when we get to wetland areas, what we do to communities is we don't use that approach of saying don't use the wetland, but we kind of inculcate in those people the understanding that you can still use the wetland without harming it. So we use this wise use approach, whereby we protect the wetland and allow communities to utilize. Now, coming to the examples, I can cite several examples. We have got Njobo wetland in Masvingo district, in Masvingo province, that actually we are working on, or with together with communities in partnership with aquaculture. So this is the private sector now, private sector coming into play. We have had also a good example of how communities, they actually become part of wetland management, part of wetland protection. The Driefontein grassland, that is a Ramsar site that had its part, some of its parts actually getting degraded. Remember, the Driefontein is a grassland that actually stretches, I think, across 3 provinces, that is Masvingo, Mashonaland East, as well as Midlands. So you find there are certain parts of those grasslands that were actually getting affected. So we worked together with the BirdLife in actually resuscitating parts of those grasslands. And we stand proud today to say we used one of the environmental management plan that we had developed as the agency. We actually used it as a toolkit to actually manage the Driefontein grassland. Now, if you go back to those communities today, they would tell a beautiful story. Some, they will actually tell you there are some bird species that had gone extinct, that had emigrated, but we are having them back here. We have seen different types of snakes, the reptiles, some of them that we had actually thought they were extinct, but they are back. So that is another good model that as Zimbabwe really we are actually using it to say, look here, this is one good space, one good wetland that where we did well, and we can still replicate around the country. I think I will not have done justice if I don't mention Kasibo wetland. Kasibo wetland is in Wange, and for your own information, or just to bring you into perspective, this is a wetland that is in a dry region. We are talking of Wange is just dry there, but there we find these islands of moisture, and which remain very critical to such landscapes. So Kasibo wetland is a one kind of a model that really we are so proud of. We worked together with World Vision, and today, if you go back to that community, it has actually changed the cosmetic of the community. You know, the poverty datum line that was really dwindling. If you go there now, they are able to produce enough crops. They are able to even take some for resale. For sale. Generate enough income to go into other socio-economic needs of that community. So these are just a few examples of models that I've identified, which I can actually confirm to the nation right away, and actually, testify that these are models that really stand out in the country, and we are using them as centers of excellency, and using lessons taken from there to replicate across the country.
Amkela, so if a community feels that they want to restore, reclaim their wetland, how can they work with Emma?
Thank you so much. It's Emma is there to actually, support in the management of these natural resources. Um, for starters, Emma is all over the country. We are in all districts, all provinces, including the two metropolitan provinces. So you are very free to come through our offices. If you can't come through our offices, we have also institutions that can assist you to get information to us. If you go to the rural spaces, we've got what we call environmental subcommittees that work so much together with the councillors, that work under the traditional leadership in those spaces. So you can always communicate whatever you want done about your wetland through those systems. Other than that, as the agency, we don't we are not very stationary, but we do what we call regular environmental audits. And through those environmental audits, we are actually able to pick on opportunities that are there in the environment, especially in this instance where we are talking about resuscitation of wetlands. We are actually able to pick on some of the wetlands. Usually we kind of do what we call ecological assessments. Through those ecological assessments, we are actually able to determine whether a wetland has been degraded. If it has degraded, what can be done to it? We proffer solutions together with the community. Usually, we tend to thrive on local, engineered solutions, local solutions that communities can actually sustain. So through such means, we are able really to assist communities, but that doesn't stop our communities as well to communicate with us. We are there on social media. We are there also. We have got a toll-free line that they can also access us. So we are there everywhere. Communities should just walk through. We have got an open door policy.
Wonderful. 25 minutes to 9 p.m. The program is State of Affairs here on Star FM. And tonight we are discussing preservation of Zimbabwe's wetlands for a sustainable future ahead of COP15 to be held in July. And in the studio, I'm joined by Fanuel Mangisi, he's the Environmental Impact Assessment and Ecosystems Protection Manager, and Amkela Sidange, the Environmental Education and Publicity Manager, both from the Environmental Management Agency, EMA. And Fanuel, in what way can development and conservation be balanced to protect Zimbabwe's wetlands? Toda kudevelopa but also toda kuprotecta ma-wetlands zvinogona kushandidzana here?
Thank you very much, George. So maybe before I fully answer your question, I also want to pick up from what my sister has said. So the major issue that we're talking about is wise use of wetlands. So she said we are not exactly saying no. What it means is there are means of utilizing wetlands that can benefit the communities, but whilst also maintaining the status quo of the wetlands. I think when you asked the question on restoration projects, it was good that she highlighted some of the efforts that has been done by the agency in trying to restore the degraded wetlands. I think I just want to say, as Zimbabwe, we also have sites that we have designated as sites of national importance. So Zimbabwe has got 7 sites. So these sites, they include the 4 protected areas, that is Manapus, Victoria Falls itself, the host to COP15, Chinoi Caves, even Lake Chuero. So these areas are under protection from the National Parks and Wildlife Authority. So in those areas, there is protection of the wetlands, but at the same time, there are other activities that are happening there that benefits the country as well as the community. You cannot overemphasize the importance of Manapus. It's rich in biodiversity, your large mammals, so it's a tourist destination. You can also talk about Victoria Falls. It's a protected area, one of the 7 wonders of the country. They host to COP15, a lot of tourism activities there. So you can also talk about Chinoi Caves, your cultural activities, the tourism activities. So these are some of the examples where development has been done and protection has been done together in trying to protect the wetlands. So the issue of sustainable development is very key. So in simple terms, this is the development that enables the current generations to meet their aspirations and needs, but without compromising the ability of the future generations to also meet their needs and aspirations. So what it simply means is whatever activities that we are doing today, we should not be able to compromise or to leave the environment in a worse state. I think earlier on I talked about the environmental and impact assessment process. This is one of the process that has been developed to try and balance the environment as well as the people around, so that at least people can benefit from certain development projects, but they are supposed to be done in a way that leaves the environment for the future generations. I think when we also talk about the pillars, or one of the key pillars of the convention, it talks about wise use of wetlands. So when you utilize the wetlands, those wetlands that are fenced off, and then we can then have livelihood projects on some of these wetlands, the gardens that Amkela has talked about. So we protect wetlands, but we also allow certain activities that also benefit the communities. And then I have talked about the National Wetlands Guidelines. So the guideline is also an attempt by the government to try and put apparatus in place where certain activities can be allowed in a certain piece of wetland without degrading it. That's why we can also talk about low impact projects that can be done in certain types of wetlands. So even the restriction that we are talking about, even when we do the EIA processes, when we even issue certificates, some of the certificates are even issued with conditions to try and balance the environment, the development, as well as the benefit to the locals and the country. So definitely we have policies in place that also calls for sustainable utilization of wetlands. We are not saying totally no, but we are also deriving benefits. So it's an advantage to protect the wetlands because you also derives benefits from the utilization of these wetlands.
Let's get to the cracks of our program, COP15. Since Zimbabwe will be hosting COP15 in July, if you can just tell us what COP15 is all about and how significant is this conference for global wetland conservation?
Thank you very much, George. I think COP15 just simply means Conference of Parties 15th meeting. So the convention that we are talking about, it's called Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. So this convention was established in 1971 in the town of Ramsar, which is in Iran. So the convention came about after realization that our wetlands are being depleted at an alarming rate, and there is need for global efforts to try and halt, to try and restore the wetlands. So the mission for the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands is simply conservation and wise use of wetlands. How is this done? This can be done through local action plans that Amkela has talked about, also through national action plans. And at the same time, there are also waters or wetlands that are internationally which are of international importance, or that we share with other countries. So definitely there is need for international cooperation. So whatever we are doing here in Zimbabwe should not also affect even our neighboring countries like Zambia or even Mozambique. So this is in response to the destruction of wetlands. So as Zimbabwe, we ratified the Ramsar Convention in 2013. I think I've talked about the 7 Ramsar sites that we have also designated in addition to other efforts. So this Ramsar Convention on Wetlands to date, it has got 172 contracting parties or countries that have ratified the Ramsar Convention, they've come together to say, yes, we are in it together. So we are also putting efforts in trying to conserve our wetlands. So coming to Victoria Falls, I think the last COP was held in Geneva. It was a hybrid. It was held virtually from China and Geneva. So that's when Zimbabwe showed its interest to host the next COP. So COP 14 was the 14th meeting. We are now coming for COP 15, which is going to be the 5th meeting. So these meetings of the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, they are held once after every 3 years. So Zimbabwe showed its intention to host, and then of course following the written submissions, and then when it came to the national status, and then it was presented before the cabinet, and then cabinet approved, and then thereafter preparations then began to host COP15, which is going to be held in Victoria Falls on the dates that you have talked about, 23 to 31 July 2025. So what it means is come COP15, 172 countries are coming to Zimbabwe. What it means is this is a huge opportunity for Zimbabwe. This is a huge opportunity for Southern Africa. This is also an African COP. We are there to showcase what we have done as the country, what we have done as the region, what we have done as Africa in terms of wetlands management. So different countries are coming here with different experiences, with different success stories, but the goal is towards wise use and conservation of wetlands. So the structure of COP15, it will have different activities. Some of the activities include an opening ceremony, of course, and I'm sure if all goes well, this official opening, it is also expected to be presided for by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. And we also expect to have what is called a high-level segment where ministers from different ministers of environment from different countries that are coming are expected to take part, where different speakers will talk about different subjects related to wetlands conservation. And then Amkela talked about wetland city accreditation. So those 31 cities that have been accredited as wetland cities, they are also going to receive awards. So we also have a wetland accreditation award ceremony that is going to be held during COP15. And in addition to that, we are also going to have exhibits. Different success stories are going to be exhibited, and then different organizations are going also to be exhibiting their stories in terms of what they've done in terms of wetlands management. And also side events are also there, where certain countries or certain institutions have applied for side events. Side events, they are also there for discussions in terms of different wetlands management issues that have happened in different areas. And then the last one, I think, is the main plenary. So as we go into COP15, there are resolutions that are currently called draft resolutions. They're expected to be discussed and then debated for, and at the end, we are expecting to have common understanding in terms of these draft resolutions, where we can then say, as Africa or as the global world, we have agreed over this draft resolution that is going to help in terms of shaping the future. I think one of the key issues that is also going to happen is after COP, or with coming of this COP, Zimbabwe will then become the president of COP for the next 3 years. So it's also an important milestone for Zimbabwe, where you are leading the global world in terms of efforts to deal with wetlands management. So that is an opportunity for Zimbabwe, an opportunity for Africa to be on the forefront in terms of wetlands management.
Thanks, Fanuel. I know you were just you scratched a little bit on it, but in terms of benefits, what does Zimbabwe expect to gain from hosting COP15, and what role do you think COP15 will play in shaping Zimbabwe's wetland conservation policies and practices? Whilst you're answering that, you can also answer this listener. He's a bit skeptical, and the wetland conservation for stands development is an undisputed fact on the ground. Amenozve conference kuti it's for appearance or travel allowance pamwe. So when you talk of the benefits, maybe mune muchitopindurawo this listener ungofunga kuti kungoda kuita zveappearance allowance.
Thank you very much, George. So I will pass that question to Amkela. She will talk about that.
Yeah, I will still ask my brother to go back to it. But what I just wanted to say, what I just wanted to say is that at times it's quite critical to share with our people, such that they get this bigger understanding of the whole story. If we look at Zimbabwe, we just came on board to be part of the contracting party to this convention in 2013. But this is a 1971 convention, but we just came on board in 2013. And already, after coming on board in 2013, we have been able to win the bid to host meeting number 15. So that on itself goes to show that as Zimbabwe, there are efforts that are being recognized world over when it comes to how we are protecting our wetlands. I don't want to take so much about benefits from my brother, but I will quickly just go back to the listener to say this is not about allowances. This is about proving to the world and confirming to the world that Zimbabwe is equal to the task when it comes to wetland protection, wetland management. I know if we were to ask where this listener is actually, where this listener is, probably he was just going to confirm that he's in Harare. Because the moment you talk about wetlands, people think Harare. Let's not think Harare only when we're talking about wetlands. Let's think Zimbabwe. And the Harare mindsets, kindly look out through the window and look at what your next doors are doing. You'll be amazed at what Mashonaland East is doing, Mashonaland West is doing, even all the other provinces, what they are doing. They are just doing so well. Meaning that whatever might be happening in Harare needs to be dealt with looking at the circumstances in Harare and not just probably placing all wetlands in one basket and say in Zimbabwe we have failed to protect our wetlands. It's only circumstantial. It's only the circumstances in Harare, which again we need to deal with. Thank you.
You want to go back to the benefits?
Yes, correct, George. Thank you, Amkela, for that. I think, like I've indicated before, we are expecting 172 contracting parties or countries to be in Victoria Falls. So, when these contracting parties come, they will come with a delegation. So, number one, this is a boost for even our tourism in the country. Imagine where each and every country will bring 15 or 20 delegates times 172 contracting parties. What then happens to even our hotels in Victoria Falls? So this is one of the benefits, I think. But one of the key benefits of bringing the world together is sharing of experiences. Sharing of experiences in terms of one goal: wetlands management. What is it that they are doing in this region? What is it they are doing in our own region? Where can we find a common ground? So we are going to be having even linkages, sharing of experiences. And then we talked about even projects that we are likely to have, restoration projects. So part of the people who also come to the COP15 are also funding partners or even development partners that have a key interest in wetlands management. So some of the projects that Amkela talked about, yes, partly some of them are being funded from the agency, but some are also funded from development partners. I can't mention them here, but development partners, they will also be there. They have got a keen interest in wetlands management, so they will be there also to also provide technical advice, and also these are also opportunities for funding. And then other multilateral environmental agreements, like other conventions, they also converge. Remember, when we talk about wetlands, we can't even ignore the issues of climate change. So there are other multilateral environmental agreements representatives that are also there. So it is also an opportunity for synergies between the climate change issues, even the chemicals issues, and the wetlands issues, so that at least we can see synergies where we can then work together. So this is a very good opportunity for sharing experiences, explore funding mechanisms, and also to find a common ground in terms of wetlands management.
You also want to talk about follow-up actions which will be put in place after COP15 in terms of outcomes which will be discussed at COP15. What follow-up actions will be put in place?
Oh, thank you very much. I think earlier on I talked about resolutions. So resolutions are going to be discussed and then debated, and some of them are going to be agreed. When a resolution is going to be agreed on, there is then a call for contracting parties to then implement the provisions of different resolutions. One of the key issues that is also going to be handled during COP is the next strategic plan for the Convention on Wetlands. So the strategic plan has got activities that are going to be spelled out, which is different contracting parties after the COP15. We then expect to extract certain activities to domesticate them into our local plans, national plans, so that at least we can even up the game in terms of management of wetlands. And then Zimbabwe, I've talked about that. Zimbabwe will be the next president of COP, so it will be on the forefront in terms of steering the ship. One of the integral components of the convention is the standing committee. So the standing committee makes decisions in terms of how the COP is going. And then so Zimbabwe will then be on the forefront in terms of steering this ship in terms of the global discourse in terms of wetlands management. So these are some of the expected outcomes where the agreed resolutions, they are supposed to be then domesticated, and then even exploring linkages between other environmental agreements and even possible areas where funding can be done to ensure that we can then have protection and restoration of some of these wetlands.
Thank you so much, Fano. My last question to both of you will be what actions can individuals, communities, and organizations take to support wetland conservation in Zimbabwe? But before you answer that, let's go through the questions. Kela, I think you know the drill. We find out from the listeners their views and maybe questions or opinions, and then you respond to that, and then you'll come back to my question to say, as individuals, communities, and organizations, what can we do to protect wetlands in Zimbabwe? This is Africa Chiswa, Star FM family. Why is it that in Europe some build homes even in the sea banks? Are they those not wetland areas? When we build our homes on dry land, even if such areas are called wetlands, where exactly are we going wrong? That's Chiswa there. And then kune vari kuvaka dzimba mumatoro. And then Hans Millennium Heights in Harare is in wetlands. Why did Emma approve it? If not, what's being done? And then Black Moses, Hans, what is the total percentage of wetlands that has been degraded at national level? And then which province is the degradation most rampant? And then summarily, what modalities are in place to combat the negative impact of the degradation of wetlands? If you can just respond to those issues before I go through another round, and then we close the program.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think the one that probably referred to the issues of Europe, like I did say, some of these issues, they are circumstantial. You realize that probably the approaches that are used there in Europe, they are actually, kind of friendly to the management of wetlands. So usually we cannot give such comparisons. We need to look at our own circumstances. I'm not running away from why in Europe they are doing it that way. They're doing it that way because it suffices to their own circumstances. But for our circumstances, we need to actually look at what actually, can work for us. And then the issue of the extent of degradation, I think we did point out when we started the program that we said about 26%, that is according to the National Wetland Master Plan of 2021. About 19% is in the stable, and then 26% is severely degraded, 15% moderately degraded. And probably now looking at the spatial comparison, like which province is mostly affected, I won't really want to give a kind of a conclusive response to that to actually say this is the specific province that is hugely affected, but I want to use the rural and urban landscapes, and I want to probably, as I delve into the rural landscapes and consider those that are actually in the dry regions. The dry regions, really the wetlands, they've been mostly affected, especially due to the changes in the climate. They've been affected, and you realize that they become the only moisture island, and at the end of the day, they become safety nets for agricultural activities, and thereby actually, exacerbating the degradation. But if we come into the urban spaces, I can quickly point out Harare, that the degradation is very, very fast. That is for Harare, just as a whole, as the whole province, as an urban setup, the degradation is really, really fast. And the unfortunate part is that when we are looking at degradation of wetlands in Harare, we are talking about headwaters wetlands, which are wetlands that actually are the water line of most of our landscapes, especially downstream. So basically, when it comes to the degradation, I think I can put it like that. Now, looking at what we can do as individuals, I think what I can quickly say is that Zimbabweans, we are not going anywhere into the future without our wetlands. Definitely, we need to go with our wetlands into the future. That's why you realize that even COP15, the theme is running under protecting wetlands for our common future. Thank you.
All right, Fanol, you also want to respond, and as you respond, there is a show, and we got our own trust that we founded with a mandate to do with culture and heritage preservation initiatives. We want to work with Emma. Can we be accredited? And then he also goes to ask if they can also participate. Is it open for anyone to participate at COP15? That's Joe.
Thank you very much, George. I think this is maybe our final rounds of questions. I think I just want to talk a bit about the issue of Europe, and that Amkela has also talked about. I think one of the critical issues that we are also looking at is the issue of science and technology. I think that is very key. If we are able to demonstrate that we can build, but mainly people are mainly worried about the structure that they are talking about. But it's not only the structure. We are saying you want to put your structure here, but what then happens also to the wetlands? If you can also offer mitigation measures, or even if you can prove scientifically and even technologically that yes, I can build this structure, but at the same time, I'm not compromising the status or the ecological functions of the wetland. I think it's agreeable. We can work out something like that. So Europe, they are at a bit of an advanced stage in terms of technological and science, in terms of utilization of wetlands. So this is maybe where the difference is. Where we issue certain certificates in terms of development projects, some of the projects we then issue with even conditions. Conditions are even given to allow certain development to happen in a certain way, so as to protect certain types of wetlands. So sometimes an area might be consisting of a wetland area and a non-wetland area. So we might then issue a certificate and then conditions to protect the wetland area, so that at least it can be, it also remain functional. I think that listener who has talked about the trust, I think yes, Emma is open. I think Amkela has talked about that. We can share the concept, and we can also help in terms of refining the concept. So even those projects that are being funded, as Emma, we are within all the districts in the country, and we also assist communities, even in terms of writing project proposal that can also be able to seek funding. Coming to the COP, I think my sister will talk about that. COP, it's not a very open event. It's not a very open event where you walk in and walk out. So what is going to happen is there is attendance by registration and accreditation. So those who are willing or who want to participate or to partake to attend COP, they are supposed to register, and our online website is now on for registration of local participants. But for the Zimbabwean delegate, it's approved and then registered through the convention. So this is where we are. It's not an open event where you walk in today, you come tomorrow, you go back today. You need to be registered, and then you have to show purpose why you are also attending. If you are also from an institution, you also have to have a nomination letter from your institution and the role that you are going to do for COP15.
Just final word, Kela, because time is up.
Thank you so much. I actually picked on the issue of, I think the listener who was saying their trust was talking about issues of indigenous knowledge systems. Yeah, we very much value that concept. We really want, to see it infused more into wetland management, because we have seen it working over time, especially in the rural community where there is a lot of social cohesion. Issues of knowledge, indigenous knowledge system are quite key. So, like finally said, we are here to assist you. And just on the website that he said is up, you can quickly go to wetlands cop 15.gov.zw. Wetlands cop 15.gov.zw. That will take you to all the social, or can I say, online registration that we want to do. And it's also linked to all the social media handles where you can actually learn more about this COP.
Thank you so much. We have come to the end of tonight's program, where we have been discussing preservation of Zimbabwe's wetlands for a sustainable future ahead of COP15 to be held in July. Much appreciation to my guest, Afano Mangisi, is the Environmental Impact Assessment and Ecosystems Protection Manager, as well as Amkela Sidange. She's the Environmental Education and Publicity Manager. They are both from the Environmental Management Agency, EMA. Also, a big thanks to the producers of the show, Nomen Muchemwa and Selena Nyamangara. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Join me again next time on your favorite show, State of Affairs. And coming up next is the nationally famous show, Sungura Wednesday with Ndumiso. I am George Msumba, and it's good night.
You've